They say the mind is a battlefield, but that's not true. A battlefield has rules, honor, tactics, a beginning and an end. The mind has none. The mind is a maze, a labyrinth of pride, fear, and ego where every step can be used against you if someone understands how you think. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He didn't just play the game of power, he rewrote the rule book. And at the core of his brilliance lies one of the most dangerous weapons ever conceived: reverse psychology. Here's the thing most people miss: reverse psychology isn't about lying. It's not about tricking someone with cheap mind games. It's about understanding human nature so precisely that you can lead people to do what you want by making them believe it was their idea all along. It's control without resistance, power without open conflict. To use reverse psychology is to weaponize perception. And perception, when properly shaped, is stronger than force. Let's break this open. Imagine a ruler trying to control a proud general. If he orders the general directly, the man's pride resists. If he begs, he loses authority. But if the ruler subtly plants doubt in the general's pride, "I understand, perhaps this campaign is too ambitious for your men," the general's ego rises. He takes the mission just to prove him wrong. The ruler didn't command obedience, he created it. That's Machiavellian mastery, when you no longer need to fight for control because others willingly hand it to you. Tactic 1. The art of contradiction. Machiavelli knew the first rule of influence. Humans hate being told what to do. We crave autonomy even when we're walking into a trap. The art of contradiction is simple. You don't push. You pull by resisting slightly, creating friction that ignites their ego. Tell a stubborn person they're free to make their own choice, and they'll likely do what you wanted in the first place, because now it's their decision. Tell a rival he's not capable of achieving something, and his pride will drag him into your design. Reverse psychology thrives in tension. It doesn't dominate, it provokes. You let their own ego do the work. Tactic 2. Praise as poison. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance." It's a brutal truth. Vanity drives people more than morality ever will. If you understand this, you can use praise like poison, sweet on the surface, lethal underneath. Here's how it works. Flatter not their skill, but their independence. Make them feel untouchable. Then when they overextend, you strike. Napoleon did this with his rivals. He showered them with admiration, spoke of their unique genius, then watched as their arrogance blinded them. Praise is not kindness. The Machiavellian sense, it's camouflage. You feed their ego until it consumes them. Tactic 3. The trap of freedom. Give a man the illusion of freedom and he'll never notice the cage. This is the most elegant form of control, to make obedience feel like liberation. You don't forbid, you permit. You don't say you must. You say, do as you wish. The church mastered this centuries ago. It didn't always enforce faith through swords. It built systems of guilt and salvation that made people want to obey. The chains were internal. Machiavelli admired that kind of power, the kind that doesn't rely on violence but psychology. Reverse psychology at its highest form isn't manipulation. It's architecture. You're not forcing people, you're designing their reality. Tactic 4. Silence as suggestion. People fear silence more than they fear confrontation. When you withhold words, you create an empty space their minds must fill, and they almost always fill it with what you want them to think. A king once said to his court, "I trust you all completely." Then he said nothing more. His silence lingered. The courtiers began to wonder, did he mean it? Who does he suspect? Soon they began to betray each other, desperate to prove loyalty. The king didn't accuse anyone. He didn't need to. Reverse psychology isn't about clever speech. It's about strategic absence. What you don't say can turn into an invisible command. Tactic 5. The mirror of rebellion. There's a certain kind of person who thrives on rebellion. The contrarian, the idealist, the one who must resist authority just to feel alive. Machiavelli would never fight them directly. He'd reflect their energy back at them. You don't challenge a rebel, you mirror them. You say, "I see what you're doing. You're right not to bow to anyone." The moment you do that, you diffuse their weapon. Their rebellion loses its meaning. Now they trust you because you understand them. And in that trust lies control. In reverse psychology, understanding isn't empathy, it's leverage. Tactic 6. The inverted command. If you ever want someone to do something, frame it as something they shouldn't do. Don't look into that file. Don't ask too many questions. You probably wouldn't be interested in this opportunity. Curiosity is the most predictable human impulse. Tell someone not to do something and you've practically guaranteed they will. It's not defiance, it's instinct. People equate forbidden with valuable. That's why censorship often amplifies what it tries to silence. The inverted command doesn't push people, it seduces them, and that's far more powerful. Tactic 7. The power of doubt. Machiavelli understood that certainty is the death of curiosity. If you want someone to act, you don't give them answers, you give them questions. A good leader doesn't say, "This is the truth." He says, "What if the truth isn't what you think?" That seed of doubt creates movement. People become restless, searching for resolution, and when they move, you can guide them. Reverse psychology thrives in that subtle uncertainty. You don't destroy their confidence outright. You shake it just enough for them to seek stability in you. Tactic 8. The illusion of inferiority. Sometimes the most powerful move is to appear weaker than you are. People drop their guard around those they underestimate. Machiavelli admired the fox more than the lion, not because the fox is stronger, but because it's underestimated. Julius Caesar did this perfectly. He played the modest soldier, eating with his men, wearing plain armor, pretending humility. His rivals laughed at his simplicity. By the time they realized he'd maneuvered into absolute power, it was too late. Reverse psychology works best when wrapped in disguise. Appear harmless, and people will invite you into places they defend against kings. Tactic 9. Redirecting the flame. Anger is raw energy. If you suppress it, it explodes. But if you redirect it, it becomes a weapon. When someone hates you, don't fight their hatred, feed it, but toward another target. Machiavelli saw this during the wars of Florence. The wise rulers didn't extinguish the people's fury. They pointed it elsewhere. You never destroy emotion, you channel it. If a rival despises you, hint that someone else is speaking ill of them. Let their fire consume your enemy instead. Reverse psychology turns enemies into allies, not through kindness but through redirection. Tactic 10. The subtle withdrawal. Here's a truth you'll never hear in self-help books. Neediness kills power. The moment you chase, you lose. Reverse psychology flips that by turning absence into magnetism. Machiavelli observed that power always attracts those who can't have it. The less available you are, the more value people assign to your attention. When you withdraw, it creates psychological scarcity. They begin to chase you, not out of love, but out of insecurity. The best persuasion isn't pursuit, it's retreat. Tactic 11. Controlled chaos. There's genius in unpredictability. When people can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. Machiavelli advised rulers to occasionally act irrational, not recklessly, but unpredictably, so no one could form reliable expectations. Reverse psychology uses this principle in conversation and conflict. When someone expects you to beg, stay silent. When they expect you to explode, laugh. The dissonance scrambles their mental script, and now you control the tempo. Predictability is comfort. Chaos creates dependency. They'll cling to you for stability, not realizing you're the one shaking the ground. Tactic 12. The reverse confession. Admit to a lesser flaw before anyone can accuse you of a greater one. That's how you control perception before it controls you. Machiavelli saw that when you confess first, you rewrite the narrative. People stop seeing you as deceitful, they see you as honest, even while you hide the truth beneath. Reverse psychology uses this to disarm suspicion. You show a crack and people stop looking for the fracture. It's how politicians survive scandal, how manipulators build trust, and how leaders maintain untouchable credibility. Never defend yourself too hard. Admit strategically. Tactic 13. The puppet's dream. Here lies the final, most dangerous Machiavellian truth. People want to feel in control, even when they're being controlled. Reverse psychology is the art of giving them that illusion. You hand them a script and let them think they wrote it. You whisper suggestions and make them believe they're revelations. They call it freedom. You call it design. The greatest rulers, lovers, and negotiators all share this secret. They don't argue for control, they make control invisible. You see, most people are slaves who believe they're free. They mistake emotion for choice, routine for reason, and pride for independence. That's why reverse psychology works. It doesn't fight their chains, it decorates them. It makes the prison feel like home. Every empire, every movement, every relationship that held power over others did it not through violence, but through this quiet manipulation of perception. The masters of history understood that control disguised as freedom is the most stable kind of power. Take the Roman Empire. When they conquered a region, they didn't force every custom to vanish. They allowed the people to keep their gods, their language, their rituals, so long as they paid tribute and pledged loyalty to Rome. They felt autonomous, but every festival, every harvest, every act of worship still fed the empire's machine. That's the illusion of freedom, the leash hidden behind the crown of choice. Machiavelli studied that principle like a surgeon studies anatomy. He knew the anatomy of obedience begins with pride. Touch a man's pride and you touch his soul. That's where you plant the seed of manipulation, not in logic, not in fear, but in ego. Pride is predictable. Pride always needs to prove itself. So if you tell someone they're too weak, they'll break themselves to prove you wrong. If you tell them they're too strong, they'll overreach until they crumble. The Machiavellian strategist never argues against pride. He feeds it, like giving wine to a king until the king forgets who poured it. Here's what people don't understand. Persuasion isn't about words. It's about framing reality so that every path they see still leads where you want them to go. Let's say you want someone to trust you. If you say, "Trust me," their guard rises. But if you say, "You probably won't believe me anyway," you trigger the inverse. Their instinct to rebel against control kicks in, and suddenly they want to prove they're independent enough to believe you. You didn't convince them, you led them. That's the paradox of influence. People resist being pushed, but they're drawn toward resistance itself. It's psychological gravity. Now imagine this applied to power on a larger scale. Political leaders, corporate heads, revolutionaries, they all use the same machinery, the language of choice. You're free to decide. You're empowered to act. You control your destiny. These phrases sound noble, but they're strategic. They satisfy the ego while steering behavior. Reverse psychology is not the art of lies, it's the architecture of belief. And Machiavelli understood that belief doesn't need truth to function. It only needs momentum. Once a person begins to believe they're acting freely, they'll justify every manipulation as self-expression. That's how revolutions are steered. That's how marketing works. That's how love becomes a battlefield of unspoken tactics. Let's step closer to the human level. Picture two lovers in conflict. One pleads for attention, the other withdraws. The pleader thinks persistence will win affection, but in truth, their need only pushes the other further away. The Machiavellian mind would flip the script, withdraw instead, create space. Silence becomes the loudest message. Suddenly, the power dynamic reverses. The one who is running now begins to chase. That's the psychology of absence. People value what they fear to lose. Give them certainty, they grow bored. Give them uncertainty, they burn with desire. Machiavelli would smile at that. He knew the heart obeys the same laws as the state. It fears vacuum. The moment you pull away, they rush to fill the gap. Power isn't about force, it's about gravity. The stronger your center, the more others orbit you. But gravity is invisible. That's what makes it dangerous. There's a story of a Florentine noble who asked Machiavelli how to keep his court loyal. Machiavelli told him, "Give them freedom enough to betray you, but reason enough not to." The noble laughed, thinking it was a paradox. It was strategy. When you trust people openly, they feel noble for staying. When you demand loyalty, they feel enslaved. The first earns devotion, the second earns rebellion. Reverse psychology thrives in this paradox, the balance between freedom and control. Think of it this way: if you want a person to reveal their secrets, don't interrogate them. Tell your own first, something half-true but vulnerable. They'll feel compelled to match your openness. Humans mirror what they receive, it's how empathy evolved. So you weaponize empathy. You give just enough sincerity to make them drop their armor. That's not cruelty, it's precision. Machiavelli would say that morality is a luxury of the powerless. The powerful understand that perception is morality. If people believe your intentions are good, your actions don't need to be. Here's another truth: every act of manipulation begins with observation. You cannot control what you do not understand. The modern world drowns people in noise, scrolls, screens, endless talking, but the strategist watches silently. He studies microreactions. He listens to contradictions. He observes the tiny hesitations that reveal where a person's pride lives. Once you know what someone's pride protects, you know where to strike or where to flatter. A wise manipulator never humiliates directly. That only breeds resentment. Instead, he guides people towards self-exposure. He lets them reveal their weakness through overconfidence. Then, when the moment comes, he gently removes the illusion. No anger, no spectacle, just revelation. The target falls not because you attacked them, but because they walked willingly into the mirror you built. That's the true artistry of reverse psychology. It's easy to make someone obey you once. It's difficult to make them want to obey you forever. That requires building emotional architecture, structures inside their mind that direct behavior long after you've spoken. Parents do it to children. Teachers do it to students. Leaders do it to nations. The question isn't whether you're being manipulated. The question is by whom. Think of propaganda not as lies but as rhythm. The same message repeated until it becomes internal music. When people start singing your tune of their own accord, you've achieved absolute influence. They'll call it patriotism, morality, faith, but beneath it all, it's conditioning. Machiavelli saw that centuries before psychology had a name. He understood that the strongest leash is the one people decorate themselves. And yet, the game isn't only about domination. A true Machiavellian knows there's elegance in restraint. You can win through surrender. Sometimes the greatest manipulation is to yield visibly while shifting control invisibly. The opponent believes they've conquered you, relaxes their guard, and in that softness you plant the seed of reversal. Take the story of Talleyrand, Napoleon's diplomat. He'd appear frail, indecisive, agreeable, while secretly guiding the entire outcome of negotiations. When accused of betrayal, he'd sigh, "I am not strong enough to oppose such a man." But it was always his hand on the lever. That's the power of the weak posture, the strength to hide strength. Reverse psychology is theater performed in silence. The audience never knows the script, but they act it out anyway. Now let's go deeper into the anatomy of persuasion itself. Every person contains two selves, the rational self that listens to logic and the emotional self that seeks validation. The emotional self drives 90% of decisions, but hates to admit it. Reverse psychology works because it speaks to both at once. You tell the rational self, you're free to choose. You tell the emotional self, but I bet you won't dare. The two selves collide. To resolve that tension, they act, and they act in the direction you designed. That's why Machiavellian influence doesn't look like pressure, it feels like momentum. People don't feel forced, they feel compelled. And the dangerous beauty of it is that you can use it for good or evil. You can lead someone into ruin or into greatness by appealing to the same ego. Machiavelli never judged that choice. He only studied what worked. He would say, "The universe rewards results, not intentions." History has proven it again and again. Alexander charmed his soldiers with the illusion of brotherhood while using them as pawns for conquest. Lincoln steered an entire divided nation by speaking not to logic, but to the people's need to feel moral. Gandhi used humility as a weapon sharper than swords. Different eras, same psychology. They all understood, power flows to those who master perception. So the next time you feel someone trying to corner you, step back and watch. Don't react, observe. Ask, what belief are they feeding in me? Because every manipulation begins with a belief you already hold. They just touch it and let it bloom. That's the frightening part. Reverse psychology doesn't plant new desires. It rearranges your existing ones. You think you're acting out of freedom, but you're only walking the path someone lit behind you. And yet, once you see this game clearly, once you understand how easily people can be led, something changes in you. You stop being predictable. You stop chasing validation. You stop being the puppet that dances for approval. You start using silence like a blade. You start letting others expose themselves while you remain unreadable. Because when they can't read you, they can't control you. That's when you begin to step into true psychological power. When you reach that point, when you can watch manipulation without being moved, you've crossed a threshold few ever find. You stop reacting. You start designing. You realize that every argument, every compliment, every silence is part of an invisible negotiation for power. Most people negotiate unconsciously. The Machiavellian does it deliberately. The masses cling to emotion because it gives them identity, but you begin to see emotion as currency, something to spend, not something to worship. You learn to appear passionate but remain calculating underneath. That's not cruelty, it's control. You can't lead chaos if you're still part of it. Reverse psychology is the highest form of emotional control because it hides the architecture of influence behind apparent vulnerability. You can weep and still win. You can apologize and still dominate. The words don't matter, the framing does. Remember this, power isn't who speaks louder, it's who sets the terms of meaning. Look closely at any manipulator, any great strategist, any enduring ruler, and you'll see the same thing. They shape the definition of virtue, of loyalty, of betrayal, until their enemies are forced to justify themselves using their language. That's reverse psychology on a civilizational scale. When you can make others defend your frame, you've already won. It starts small. In conversation, in relationships, in negotiations, you don't fight their beliefs, you reframe them. Someone says, "You're wrong." You say, "Maybe." But you seem very certain. Are you always this sure of things? Now the conversation isn't about you being wrong, it's about their ego. You've flipped the frame. You've made them defend their own rigidity instead of attacking your argument. That's the dance Machiavelli perfected, subtle reversals that make resistance self-destructive. He understood that domination through direct force creates rebellion, but domination through mental framing creates loyalty. When someone believes they're choosing their own fate, they'll defend their captor. They'll romanticize their chains. That's how entire nations stay loyal to corrupt leaders. It's how cults sustain themselves. It's how toxic relationships last for years. The trick is not to remove choice, it's to flood people with choices that all lead to the same destination. Reverse psychology is not the art of deception, it's the science of inevitability. If you understand human ego, you can predict behavior, and once you can predict it, you can design outcomes. The Machiavellian mind never asks, "How do I get them to do what I want?" It asks, "What would make them want to do it themselves?" Once you shift that question, manipulation stops feeling like effort, it becomes precision. Let's bring this down to something you can see. You're in a negotiation. The other person is being stubborn. Instead of pushing harder, you sigh and say, "You know what, you're probably right. This might not be the right fit for you." Instantly, you trigger scarcity. Their mind panics. "Wait, I'm losing control here." They start to chase, to defend, to re-engage. You didn't sell them the idea. You made them sell it to themselves. That's reverse psychology distilled into one move. Make retreat feel like their own mistake. You can use this anywhere, leadership, love, politics, because the principle doesn't change. Human ego is timeless. It obeys the same laws now as it did in Florence, in Rome, in every palace and boardroom since. And Machiavelli saw that if you could master ego, you could rule without ever raising your voice. He wrote that it's safer to be feared than loved, but only if that fear never turns into hatred. Reverse psychology is how you maintain that line. You create fear not through threat, but through respect. You make people afraid to disappoint you, not afraid of your punishment. That's a higher form of control, the kind that turns obedience into devotion. When someone obeys out of fear, they plot revenge. When they obey out of admiration, they police themselves. You don't need guards when people guard themselves in your name. That's why the great rulers didn't need to shout. They spoke in paradoxes that made followers think. They never commanded, they suggested. They let people fill the silence with obedience. The greatest kings and leaders understood this dance intuitively. Elizabeth, I ruled a nation surrounded by enemies by mastering the art of contradiction, appearing delicate but untouchable, yielding yet immovable. She'd let her courtiers argue, fight for her approval, and when she finally spoke, her decision felt divine because they had already exhausted their will. That's not charm, that's control wrapped in grace. Reverse psychology wears many masks. It can be elegance, it can be kindness, it can be self-deprecation. But underneath, it's the same pattern. Lead them to believe the path was theirs. If you ever want to see the true power of this principle, look at manipulation in love. The most magnetic people aren't the most beautiful or the most charming. They're the ones who understand emotional leverage. They give a little, then withdraw. They plant insecurity, then offer comfort. They make you feel like earning their approval means proving your worth. And before you know it, you're chasing something you never agreed to pursue. That's not magic. That's Machiavellian geometry. Every movement calculated to shift the center of gravity in their favor. But there's a darker revelation beneath all this. The more you understand reverse psychology, the more you realize how fragile free will truly is. Most of what people call choice is just emotional patterning. We are predictable in our rebellion, loyal in our vanity, blind in our pride. That's what Machiavelli saw when he wrote The Prince. He wasn't writing a manual for cruelty. He was writing a mirror. He was showing humanity what it really obeys. And here's the most uncomfortable truth. Reverse psychology only works because people need control. That need is your entry point. If you can satisfy it symbolically, make them feel in control while you shape the outcome, you become invisible. The invisible player always wins. When power becomes visible, it attracts enemies. When it stays unseen, it lasts. That's why the sharpest manipulators never reveal intent. They hide their strategy beneath confusion, laughter, or apparent honesty. They know people trust those who seem too open to have a plan. That's the perfect disguise, transparency as camouflage. If you ever meet someone who tells you everything, who has nothing to hide, beware. That's often the most calculated performance of all. The true Machiavellian doesn't want to dominate you directly. They want to live in your head rent-free, shaping your decisions quietly while you call it intuition. And if you ever find yourself capable of this level of psychological precision, there's a question you'll need to face. Are you willing to use it? Because this power isn't light. It can destroy just as easily as it can protect. You can use it to lead people to clarity or to ruin. You can make someone believe in themselves or in you. The tactics don't care about morality. They care about outcomes. Machiavelli would say, the difference between a tyrant and a leader is not in the tools they use, but in the reasons they use them. Reverse psychology can make you a manipulator or a master teacher, a seducer or a liberator. It depends on whether you seek control or transformation. But no matter which path you choose, one truth will follow you. People will always believe what protects their ego. That is the law that governs all influence. Appeal to fear and they'll fight. Appeal to pride and they'll follow. So the wise never argue. They plant seeds of pride and let them grow. They whisper truths disguised as insults. They gift freedom disguised as boundaries. And when the world finally bows, it believes it's standing tall. That's the highest victory, the one where no one even knows you've won. Machiavelli once said, "Men are simple creatures. They are moved by necessity or by vanity." Reverse psychology speaks to both. It makes them need what you want them to desire. It makes their vanity the leash that leads them. And when you master that, when you can walk into a room and bend outcomes without force, without raising your voice, you stop playing the game of power. You become the game itself. That's the final Machiavellian truth. The world is a theater of pride, the strong fight for the stage. The wise write the script, but the truly powerful are the ones who make everyone believe the script was written by them. So use this knowledge carefully. Speak less, watch more, let others reveal themselves. Let silence do the heavy lifting. And remember, when you understand how people think, you don't need to shout to control them. You just whisper the right thing in the right ear at the right time. That's how kings are made. That's how empires are built, not through domination, through design. And if you can see the strings, you're already no longer the puppet.